in Somerset, and I'm standing outside what is a haunted pub, and we're going to be investigating this in just a moment. Also with us this week is our resident psychic, Phil Scott. Phil, you're going to go and see what you can detect in there for us. So you go in now, and we'll catch up with you later.
Okay, I'll see you later.
See what you find. It seems that pubs have this habit of turning up a whole number of different types of ghosts. We come across them time after time, whether it's the fact that there's alcohol on sale here, maybe it's the fact that these are often ancient buildings that have been around for a long time. Either way, they all seem to have their fair share of ghosts, and this pub, the Birtle Inn, is no exception.
I'm Heather Clark, I'm the head chef here. I've been here for about a year and a half. I've only had one experience of seeing the spirit, and that was about a month ago. It was a late night, we were in the bar just finishing our late night drink and that what we had with Chris, discussing the night and everything. Although I wasn't drinking, it was only soda, so I wasn't under the influence of alcohol. But as I was stood there talking, I turned my head, and there in the doorway of the bar was a figure of a person. It was definitely a figure, and it was there just for a couple of seconds. I felt really shivery and cold, while it was there. Then as it went, that was it. Everything just went back to normal, but it was a real shock. I didn't quite make out whether it was a male or female, but it was definitely a person. I've heard stories of being ghosts and things around here, and other people have experienced other things down in the restaurant and that, but for me it was great. I thought, wow, I've actually seen something, and I really do believe in them. It's a really great thing.
I've been here for about 4.5 years with my wife and family, and we actually live on the premises. And there have been several stories told about happenings in this property. And one of them has been the old lady who supposedly sits in the window. And that's been told by several people over a period of time. Another story is of the sound of children shouting or crying, and we've tried to trace this one back, and it seems to go back to the time when there was a fire here and 2 children were killed, possibly the mother as well. But we are talking about an awful long time ago, but I've never experienced that at all, but it's just what has been said.
I did 4.5 years. It's strange, footsteps. I used to think it was like a dog or a sister. A couple of times I looked out my bedroom door, it's at the end of the corridor of the building. There's been nothing there. I go on a couple of times a night, but roughly at certain times of the week or month, whatever. Well, between say 11 and 1 at night.
There are odd times when, for some unknown reason, there appears to be people walking upstairs when there isn't anyone up there, and this has been told by several people who have actually lived here and worked here over fairly recent years. That one, I think, one of the classic ones that has come to light very recently was the 2 totally independent customers who have been in here and have eaten in the restaurant, and they've both had sensations in there and seen what can be best described as possibly a washerwoman or someone in a smock in the bottom end of the restaurant. Very strangely, though, this was we had a gentleman who was an evacuee here during the war in 41, who I was talking to earlier this week, and he was explaining how where the restaurant is used to be a lean-to barn with bicycles in it, and what is absolutely amazing was he said that at the bottom end was the place where they used to do the washing, and they used to have an old wooden stick in there and a whole a pot to boil the clothes in and so on. It was fascinating, it really was.
Sometimes I feel like I'm being watched, and it's like I feel really eerie and spooky.
There have been occasions where staff have felt someone's been sort of close to them or near them. They've sort of, Dan, who works in the bar for me, when he's doing bills, sat at the bar, he quite often thinks there's someone stood behind him.
Phil Scott, our resident psychic, has had a look around the pub, and what have you found?
It's a very interesting place, Dave. As I came in here, I was very aware of a gentleman that stands over there by the bar that had very great difficulty in seeing things, and he holds the bar, not because he's drunk, but because he can't see and wanders up and down over that side. When I came over this side, there was a child sitting in the fire grate, which was very nice. It's just a nice energy, nice friendly energy. I went outside and wandered round, and I was very aware of somebody to do with the church, whether it was actually a vicar or, well, I don't know, but it was just somebody to do with the church, a gentleman that years ago would have been involved in some sort of contraband that would have gone on within this building. And in the restaurant area, there's an anvil, and the anvil basically marks the spot where a lady stands and just goes about her daily business. All in all, it's a very friendly place. I do feel that there's been quite a bit of occultish stuff that's gone on here over the years, and I feel that there would have been some link at some time with contraband that was brought in via the ocean. Now, I know we must be some miles from the ocean, but there would have been perhaps a dropping off point here, and this is where the clergyman or churchgoer would have had something to do with this.
Right. Now, the woman in the restaurant that you described, it was in the corner of the restaurant, any idea who or what she was?
I felt as if she was really Victorian, and she would have had a lonely life. She would have been one on her own most of the time. Whether she was actually coming into the pub on her own, which was why she stuck out from other people, or whether she actually worked here, I don't know, but she would definitely have spent a lot of time around this building on her own.
Okay, that kind of ties in with some of the stories, enough, and you knew nothing about the stories here before we brought Phil in, as usual. We didn't tell him anything at all. So that's interesting. Phil, thank you for that. Let's go back over to Chris now and see what he thinks of some of the things that Phil has had to say about the pub.
Well, I think it's absolutely fascinating. The most recent sighting is, of course, the lady in the restaurant, the woman in the restaurant. But the children are supposed to haunt the place. Again, very interesting. Not having any experience of it myself, but it is really interesting.
So there are at least two elements of what Phil picked up actually tied in with some of the things that have already been reported and seen here.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Right. And how do you feel about being the owner of a haunted pub?
I'm very excited.
Right.
Fantastic.
And I wonder, how do the customers feel? I guess as long as there are pubs like this one and other old buildings, there will inevitably always be ghosts. It seems that some buildings and places are able to hold on to images of people and things that have happened in the past. They seem to hold them in the ether and play them back to only certain people at certain times. Have you ever wondered why it is that some people seem more susceptible to seeing, hearing, or feeling ghosts or entities? Could it be that all of us have the ability to do that, but for some of us, that ability is stronger, and those people perhaps are psychic, unable to see these things? Ghosts come in all shapes and sizes, but across the length and breadth of Great Britain, there are literally thousands of them. Here's a last-minute update on this story. Since we shot the original story a couple of weeks ago, we've heard from our pub landlord. You may remember that Phil Scott, our clairvoyant, very strongly picked up a vicar around the pub, and we couldn't quite work out who that was. Well, our landlord tells us that there was a regular who used to go to the pub called Den Thorne, who died when he was 67 years old, and apparently, this is the bit, he used to dress up as a vicar and go on a pub crawl to get free drinks. So it seems that Phil was even able to pick him up. That's unusual in these sort of stories. Very often after we've shot a story, new evidence comes to light several weeks later.